Hello, everyone. My name is Bruce Sellery, and I am the president of the Canadian Club of Toronto. Welcome to this virtual event called Happiness in Times of Crisis, helping your employees manage their mental health. Now, we know for certain that this is a time of crisis. We don't need more proof of that. But can it also be a time of happiness? And that is one of the questions that we're going to endeavor to address in our time together today. This is the club's second virtual event in 123 years. The first one was last Thursday. And, we thought we'd do another because what choice do we have? This is the way the world works right now. The Canadian Club's mission is to engage Canadians in what matters most. And we know that mental health is an extraordinarily important issue and one in which many organizations and many individuals have been engaging with for really the last 5 or 10 years in a much more significant way. Before COVID-19, that was the reality. Now there are new and massive challenges for a number, that's the understatement of the year, for millions of Canadians. There are those with pre-existing mental health conditions who have been separated from their support system and suffering more acute symptoms given the stress of the pandemic. And there are those without prior issues who are experiencing anxiety and depression for the very first time. So it's not a surprise to us that there are close to 1,500 of you dialed in for this event today. Here's what you need to know about your screen. Just below, you will see a low feed button. If you happen to be in an environment where your internet speed is low, click that. It will reduce the quality of your video, but keep your audio quality the same. When it's time for our question and answer session, I will be gathering up the questions you have submitted using the question button. Also at the bottom of your screen, just click that, type your question, hit enter, and that will go directly to me. If you're having technical difficulties with the webcast, not with teaching your mom how to use FaceTime, then use the request help button for technical support. We are hosting this event with the sponsorship of Morneau Shepell. Morneau Shepell is the leading provider of tech-enabled HR services that improve employees' well-being. So thank you, Morneau Shepell. You're going to be hearing from CAMH in a little bit, and I wanted to let you know that donations to CAMH can be made through the event page. If you don't know this organization already, they're extraordinary. They're Canada's largest mental health teaching hospital and one of the world's leading research centers in the field. Let me introduce our panelists to you now. First off, Paula Allen, Senior Vice President, Research, Analytics, and Innovation at Morneau Shepell. Dr. Donna Ferguson, Clinical Psychologist at CAMH. Jessica Holmes, comedian and author of Depression, the Comedy. And Neil Pasricha, happiness expert and author of The Happiness Equation and You Are Awesome. Welcome to you all. Hello there.
Hello.
Now, for those
Thanks for having us.
Who haven't been to a Canadian Club event before, as I say, we've been doing them for 123 years, so you've kind of had time. Oh, well, one of the things that we always do is we make a toast to Canada. So while we can't do that in person, whatever liquid you have nearby, please grab it and join us in a toast to Canada. To Canada.
Cheers.
I guess we're supposed to take a sip too. Yeah, that's good. Happiness in times of crisis. Now, let me reassure you that we are going to talk about the very real and very tough issues that people are going through at this time. But we're also going to bring some levity to it, to some of the weird and unimaginable circumstances that people are going through in their home offices across the country. And for those of you with kids in the house, really just go to their bedroom and raid it for all the sorts of toys that you would love to play with, but haven't found the justification. To our panelists, I first want to ask you, what is one way, I'll go first, don't worry. What is one way in which you are fostering happiness in a time of crisis? So here's one thing we did. We moved all the furniture out of the living room to create the ultimate lip sync performance space. Then my husband and I performed Coat of Many Colors from Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat to an audience of 1. And our daughter's 10, so she didn't crack a smile. She was horrified seeing her parents do what I thought was pretty extraordinary and Broadway-worthy work, but it was magic. Paula, for you, what is one way in which you are fostering, you can pick up on my idea for later, but what is one idea, what have you been doing to foster happiness?
Well, what I love to do anyway, just to foster my own happiness, is time with my family. But what's been really great is that we have some time together, and I've decided I'm going to retry to teach my husband how to dance salsa. So we'll see whether that continues to foster happiness or not. But right now, it's pretty
great idea. Our viewers are also seeing a photo on their screen right now of some dogs. So salsa is happening in your home. In your firm, there has been, what is this, a dog show?
Well, it's a contest. It's your pet executive assistant contest. So people have been seeing on video calls, kids and pets come in, and we had some pretty amazing experiences just seeing that. So the group decided that we're going to formalize it, and we're going to have a weekly pet contest.
Amazing.
And of course, the adults got a little bit jealous of the pets. So the next thing that's going to be happening is a talent show. So a virtual talent show amongst our employees.
Fantastic. Neil, you're next. What is one thing you've been doing to foster happiness in a time of crisis?
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. It's been hard. My wife, Leslie, and I are both home with our 3 little boys, 5, 3, and 1. I'm working from home. She's homeschooling. We're trying to do both together. And usually by the time we get to dinner, we're all pretty fried. And so we are playing Rose, Thorn, Bud every night at the dinner table. Everybody goes around the table. And although it's awkward at first, you are forced to give one rose or one highlight of the day. A small win, a little pleasure, whatever it is. You saw a cardinal in the backyard. So be it. Another rose. Everybody goes around again. And then a thorn. Okay. These are easier these days, but something that did not go well. It's an opportunity for everybody else to show us some empathy and to listen. And then a bud, B-U-D, a bud, which is something you are looking forward to. Rose, thorn, bud, a simple 1 or 2 minute exercise that just helps our brains positively refocus.
Love it. And for those consumers of cannabis out there, they can take that literally and just imbibe in the comfort of their own home. Donna, to you next. What's one example for you? How do you bring a little bit of happiness into the house? You
Well,
both have kids underfoot, right?
That's right. I was going to say, much like Neil, I have 3 kids. They're a little bit older. Oldest is 14. The middle is 12, and our son is 8, turning 9 actually this Sunday. So we have to actually think about some exciting things to do for his birthday. But what we do is I'm usually locked away in my home office, working from home. And so in the evenings, this is where we actually can get time to spend in terms of the family. So each of the kids, every night, we all pick a movie that we are excited about. And we just sit and watch a movie together, eat popcorn, and just, it sounds very simple, but it's actually just time together. I think that's really the focus.
What was your choice? What one did you choose?
I chose a movie called Just Mercy, and pretty deep movie, but my 8-year-old son actually chose it with me, and he really enjoyed it. So it was great.
That's great. Jessica, for you, I mean, this is, you find happiness in the most extraordinary places on any given day. What are you doing now that's different, or are you just keeping doing what you're doing?
I guess I feel like this is sort of, for me, an unpaid, weird vacation, forced vacation. And so, yeah, I have broken out wigs and costumes and stuff that I haven't touched in a long time. And I've just been trying to put out fun little videos every couple of days that will help people feel a little better about their situations. And then as a family, we have been trying to just have a bit of a sense of normalcy. For me, the panic comes with the uncertainty. And so I'm trying to create a little certainty for all of us by continuing to have our meals together. And what we've been doing every night is either with friends or family, having dinner together on Zoom. Like, my parents sit there, we have our food here, they're in Ottawa, they're eating their meal at the same time, and we talk, and then after dinner we'll do some kind of trivia game or something with them. And so it's keeping us still socializing and feeling like, yeah, we're still part of the world, even if we're sort of and there are certain moments where I feel like we're lost in space, kind of just floating out there separately. But overall, I do think there's a beauty to how connected people have become online. And so I'm trying to take advantage of that.
I want to show some examples. The first is Tiger King. I haven't seen this show on Netflix yet, You've done an extraordinary job with your makeup there. The second one will have resonance for anybody who was around in the 80s. Who are you channeling here? Is this a 20-minute workout? And did you actually perm that hair?
So that she is one of the 20-minute workout people, but I did the 20-second workout. That's kind of what I can manage some days. It could be a Dee Schneider wig. It could be, an 80s workout lady wig. I'm not sure. I've worn it as Shakira and as Christina Aguilera before on Air Farce. And so now I pull these wigs out and I'm like I can't get to the costume shop. So I'm just making do with what I have. Okay. I will say my husband didn't enjoy when I played Tiger King. He's asked me, because the thing is, like, I'll put on the makeup and then I'll just spend the day wandering around the house, doing dishes, cooking lunch, still forgetting I have the makeup on. And he's like, I can't. I love you so much. I just can't.
Okay, I want to show one more photo because it really cracked me up. It's from a video that you did. You basically shot a video of yourself in the future. So like what, a month, 6 weeks into all this enforced isolation. What is going on your face, in the brow area in particular?
I wanted to send a message back in time to tell people, instead of hoarding toilet paper, just pick me up a pair of tweezers and we'll be good. That's what I really needed in this moment in the future.
Well, I mean, levity and laughter is so important. And what makes you, many things make you extraordinary, but one of the things that makes you extraordinary is your willingness to share a very personal story about your own journey through depression, both postpartum and what you call garden variety depression, like the kind you could pick up at Loblaws or something like that. You wrote a book about it, which is hilarious, Depression, the comedy. I want to ask you how you would say the mental health issues for you personally have been playing out in the last couple of weeks. What have you noticed has been triggering? What have you noticed has been helpful?
Right now, there are two schools of people. There are people who are in still working, but dealing with the stresses of this pandemic and of social isolation. And then there are people whose industries have been affected, whose jobs are gone for the duration of this pandemic. And so there's an extra layer of stress for that second group, to have your sort of sense of purpose every day taken away, to have those things taken away. And so I've been really careful to watch out for any signs of depression creeping back in or something, because for me, I really rely on the work that I do to give me structure and purpose and things like that. And so I've been trying to replace what structure and purpose I had in my old life. I'm trying to replace it here in different ways. So team sports are a huge part of my mental health, and I can't do those anymore. So my basketball team, we still get together every Wednesday night at 8, but now we do it virtually, and we just talk, and we talk about sports, and we talk about basketball and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to create the same tools that I would have used in my life a few weeks ago to keep my mental health up. Because for me, it's a lifelong journey. Now I'm just trying to do those things here, because even though I feel a great sense of
I think we've got a mic. Oh, you're coming back.
So just want to acknowledge also anyone who's out there watching right now. You know, I'm so sorry if you are dealing with this stress. Please know that this is temporary. This will go away. It's not going to last forever. And just do whatever you can to take care of yourself in this time that will definitively come to an end at some point.
One of the things you talked about in your book and in the conversations you had subsequent to that was your focus on small changes, not these lofty, big, life-changing goals. And that seems to really apply right now. Tell us about the message that you were focused on pre-pandemic, and how that small changes, that view, that wisdom can apply today.
Yeah. So when I was in a depression, I noticed a lot of people had a lot of advice for me, but it was really hard to find someone who would just say, what do you need? And the truth is, in these moments, it's great to ask ourselves, what do I need? What do I need right now? And yesterday, I just needed a little Deepak Chopra meditation. So I took a little 10-minute break and did that online. I'm a big fan of the snowball effect of knowing that if you do one small thing for yourself, it's going to have a lasting effect for at least a couple of hours. And so pushing myself to go for a little run with the dog, pushing myself to do a wee dance off with my kids. I have a puzzle I call the pandemic puzzle. And it's just something for the moments when you have inner anxiety and you kind of don't know what to do with that. I just go do the puzzle for a few minutes. It's a 1,000-piece puzzle. I don't know that we're ever going to finish it, but I'm a big fan of asking yourself, like, when's the last time I felt re-energized or peaceful, and then find a way to do that same thing or some version of it. I don't think people's lives have to be overhauled to find happiness. I think it's doing a couple of little things that make a big change. And one of those is trying to stay off social media and trying to stay away from news when it's necessary, because social media is beautiful and it connects us, but there are a lot of people out there right now who, in their panic, are sort of inciting fear or panic in other people with the kind of messages they're sharing. And same with the news. And so I'm trying to focus on good news and good stories and feelings of hope.
Yeah. I want to bring in Dr. Donna Ferguson, clinical psychologist from CAMH. As I said off the top, there's a number of different categories. There are people with mental health issues who were in care. They had support. They had a therapist. They had whatever those interventions were, those supports were. There are people who have undiagnosed issues and who didn't have any of that support. And then there's this general population who's dealing with things that they haven't maybe had to deal with before or in a long time. Can you talk a bit about the people for whom care has been disrupted? What is life like for them, and what are the predictable challenges that they would be going through, given that structure, routine, whatever it was, probably looks different?
Yeah, it's a very good question. It can be quite challenging. I mean, you've sort of listed three groups of people, and you're absolutely right. The people who had been relying on regular sessions, face-to-face sessions, that normal has changed. And so now we're looking at how do you accommodate people from video or phone? And it's not exactly the same. We know that it's not the same. But people, I think it's important for people, especially if they were getting that support before, you need that same level of support. What I'm finding is some clients might say, you know what, let's just put it off and wait till the face-to-face comes back. Let's just wait till this is over and then we can meet face-to-face. And then you're thinking, well, there's going to be a whole gap of time that you're not getting support. So we actually encourage people not to do that, is to connect with your providers, even if it's through video. And a lot of people are really accommodating with video now. I mean, it's all over our Ontario Psychological Association listserv that people are trying to accommodate so that to make sure that people are seen.
What are some of the triggers that people who already know that this is a challenge that they're dealing with, what are some of the triggers that people should be watching out for right now?
People, because we are practicing social distancing, it can lead to a lot of issues, especially for somebody who might be depressed. Because when someone's depressed, we encourage them to be social and connect with their networks. And so what I worry about is people who are withdrawing. Even if we're social distancing from a physical perspective, it's important to still connect with people, loved ones, friends, family members, colleagues, even through phone or video or FaceTime, because when you start to withdraw, you start to lose your energy, you start to not want to, have a structured day and do things that you normally would do, even appetite changes. Then you start to worry, are you slipping into more of a depression? Are you slipping into depression? Is this more than just stress? Is it clinical depression? Is it clinical anxiety?
I'm going to ask an unaskable question, and that is, what about the reality that many of us will see friends and family who succumb to COVID-19? That's just the reality. Is there anything that one can do to prepare themselves for that in terms of the, all that could bring up, especially for people who have pre-existing mental health conditions? Is there anything you can do in advance, just knowing that we're in a different time?
Yeah, I think that you've got to be balanced about how you think about it. You don't want to be completely negative and overwhelmed and start to maybe plan your funeral necessarily, but you do want to start looking at, do I have my affairs in order? I think it's still important to do that from a practical perspective and not still get sucked down with, I'm going to die, or my loved ones are going to die.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to ask one more question, then turn to Paula. But before I do, your practice is focused on trauma. You do a lot of work with first responders. What does that work tell you about the repercussions of the pandemic that we could be seeing in the months to come and really in the years to come as this story unfolds?
Well, it says that there's a number of things that people who are first responders, who are on the field and who are doing this work, could be dealing with a lot of issues, even just from this pandemic. So not just the cumulative trauma issues they might have been dealing with on the job, but now this is a whole other layer of trauma, that they're seeing, that they're dealing with, people dying, people being ill, not feeling that they're being able to help everyone. You're also seeing people who are not maybe first responders, but are feeling traumatized by this to some degree, whether, again, loved ones are getting sick, loved ones are dying, or, they're at risk. And so I think this is why we really need to pay attention to, people's mental health at this point.
Questions are flooding in. If you have one, please take a second to click on the button below. We're going to have all of our experts available for the Q&A portion of our conversation. But for now, let me go to Paula Allen from Morneau Shepell. Morneau Shepell is like 6,000 employees, 24,000 clients around the world. You have a lot of data at your fingertips. And one of the things that I'd like you to talk about, hot off the presses, is your mental health index. The numbers are, on the one hand, shocking, and on the other hand, not surprising. Tell us what you found.
Well, our mental health index really is a scan of how Canadians are doing at this point in time compared to our benchmark, which is actually pre-COVID. And again, not surprisingly, there's been an absolutely significant impact as a result of what's been happening over the past few months. So increase in helplessness, increase in feelings of anxiety, increase in feelings of loneliness. It is quite significant, but it's important for us to understand this because information is always helpful. And now that we have this information in a very measurable way, I'm hoping it's going to be a wake-up call for a continuation of some of the actions that have been happening. We know that this is difficult for everyone. We now have a measure of how significant that really is, and we now have something that'll help us understand whether we're doing a better or worse job as this unfolds.
Yeah, big 15-point decline, and you can find that research. We'll include it in the follow-up email so people can go through and see what it is. In practical terms, as Jessica mentioned, that people are experiencing this in different ways, not just in terms of mental health, but circumstantially. There are people who are able to watch Netflix and, clean their cupboards. And then there are people who are working flat out, trying to keep the hospitals and the lights and the recycling and all those kinds of essential services. There are also people who have lost their jobs. And if they haven't yet, they may in the weeks to come. What are the specific mental health risks that are most present, most critical for someone who has lost their job?
Well, when you think of what's happened as a result of the pandemic, we've lost our routine, we've lost our structure. We've really at a point where we have to rebuild all of that. So new routines, new ways of looking at things, new ways to actually, feel some sense of control over your own life. Add on top of that the fact that you've also lost your regular income. That is tremendous in terms of stress. I think the first thing is to look at what you practically have available to you. Many employers, when they are letting people go, they're retaining some of the benefits, and in particular, retaining EAP benefits. So that might not go on forever. It might be a month. It might be a couple of months, or your partner might have EAP benefits. That's a wonderful first step for you because you will have the opportunity to speak with a clinician to help you put in perspective everything that's happening, not only about the job loss, but everything else that's happening in your life. Practical resources such as career coaching, financial coaching, all of these things to help you get that sense of control, really put things in perspective, which will help you move forward in anything else that you do.
You have this workplace lens that you can bring to this conversation. So I want to ask you what we should be thinking about when it comes to our coworkers. You said this phrase to me earlier that was, you need to pay attention to others and walk them to care. what does that phrase actually mean in practical terms? And how, in this weird Zoomified world, can we get a gauge on what our coworkers are dealing with? And for some people, that's members of their team. For leaders, that may be subordinates in disparate physical environments. So it's a two-parter.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that happens when things are in crisis or in a major state of flux is you start to realize how important some of the things that you take for granted are. So I'll answer in a couple of levels. So number one, your coworkers provide you a sense of validation. Your coworkers provide you a sense of fun, like we saw on that was kind of translated as a result of the pandemic into this virtual app posting of pets in that contest and the like. So through this time, I think it's very important that coworkers still maintain that connection. Reaching out and just saying to somebody, hey, how you doing? Because you might not have the pat on the back, but you still want to show other people that you care about them. And even if that doesn't happen, you can be the one who reaches out. If it doesn't happen to you, reach out to the other person. People are appreciating that. I know that I've gotten a couple of notes. How you doing through all of this? I sent a couple of notes. It's very meaningful just to show that human connection. The other thing is watch for changes, because this is a very difficult time. Our mental health index shows that in a completely unequivocal way. The drop that you mentioned, that 16% drop, is unprecedented. Like, we've been collecting data for many years prior. We've been collecting data specifically in preparation for this index for the past 3 years. And seeing such a drop in such a short period of time is really a huge wake-up call. So we're not just talking about 1 in 5 here. We're talking about something that's impacting our population. So paying attention to each other and, really kind of making sure that if you see that change, you see somebody's behavior, you see their mood, their responses, you see that change, that you tell them that you've noticed that and that you're concerned and that you care. Because sometimes it is so hard for the person to understand themselves. And sometimes just the nature of being anxious or having that feeling of being drawn, you don't feel that you have the energy to take the next step to do anything about it. And in particular, during pandemic, sometimes people say, well, it's just because of everything going on. You're as important now as you were 2 months ago. Your mental health is more important now, probably, than it was 2 months ago. And as Donna said, care is available. All of our services at Morna Chappelle and many other community services are being delivered virtually. So you can still get the help that you need, and you should.
Neil, I'm going to come to you in one sec, but Paula, one more question to you. One of the interventions or modalities, or whatever the proper term is, that people have been talking about in the last couple of years is CBT, Cognitive Behavior Therapy. It's gotten some really great results for people. For those not aware, what's the one-sentence overview of what that is, and how can it apply to the mental health stuff that people are dealing with right now?
It's practical skill building response that's highly effective for dealing with a whole bunch of issues. So when you think about the three aspects of CBT, you're looking at your thoughts, like how you're interpreting a particular situation and making sure that you're interpreting it in a practical, actionable, realistic way. The other pillar is your feelings, how you're responding to that, and making sure that your feelings are productive. And if you have a flag for feelings that are actually drawing you into a negative space, that there's a way to manage that. And then there's the behavior. I cannot speak highly enough of this method, particularly at this point in time, because it is so effective. It's one of the best researched approaches to therapy, and it helps people build skills that can apply in multiple situations. So I will put a plug in for the Canadian government, because as our mental health index has shown, as our national mental health index has shown, this pandemic is not just an infectious disease issue. It's not just an issue that's impacting finances. It's really, we are looking at something that's quite significant in terms of a mental health crisis in the population, if you'd let me use that word. Yeah. our government is stepping up. We're acknowledging that. We're speaking about that. Our prime minister is talking about even, some of the family impacts around, increases in domestic violence and encouraging people to get help. The government of Manitoba actually has just announced that they are offering cognitive behavioral therapy, internet-based cognitive behavioral therapy to everyone in the province. And, we've been fortunate enough to partner with them and to see the care and concern when delivering this. And I expect over the next while that we'll see our Canadian government really step up even further, as well as businesses have been stepping up and providing additional support to their people.
Neil Pasricha, you have been very focused on putting out some actionable tips that are a build on some of the broader theoretical things that you've been working on for years in your many, many books, in your tips on things to do during this pandemic. You had a whole list, and one of them is a light bulb phase. So we're going to bring in a photo so you can see what a light bulb phase is. I watched the entire video. I was concerned for my safety. I was amazed at how it would work. I thought it was a great idea. What is a light bulb phase?
So Bruce is speaking about an article I wrote called 49 Things to Do If You're Home Due to Coronavirus. And I wrote a whole bunch of things you could do if you're home, if you're stuck home and you want to do something. One of them is taking a light bulb, carefully using pliers to pull off the top of it and turning it into a vase. I was going to say vase, but you said vase. So vase it is. A beautiful picture of which is now shown on screen. We can put a link to that, can't we, in the follow-up?
Yes.
Amongst all the academic research, how to build a light bulb vase. Very important for you and your kids.
What are some of those other tips, including build a tree fort that's consistent with children of your age? 18-year-olds might be less interested in that. What are some of the other things that you focused on?
First of all, I hate to correct you, Bruce. You're on top of it usually, but it's a couch cushion for. We're not in the trees right now. Just joking. Oh
my gosh! Hey. Thank you so much for that.
I wish I could build a tree fort.
Apologize.
Most of my work, the happiness equation, that kind of stuff, it's about getting from contentment up to happy, right? What I'm thinking about today isn't about being happy. It's about being content when most of us, myself included, are actually suffering. And we just heard the great data there that Paula shared. Far below that, right? Where anxiety is up, depression's up, loneliness is up. So how do we get ourselves to an arguably kind of centered and grounded spot? Very difficult to do. The three things I think I would share with you all today are, number one, start each day with a 2-minute morning practice.
A 2-minute morning practice.
Before you get out of bed.
What is a 2-minute morning practice?
You grab a pen, you grab a piece of paper, and you write down, I will let go of, I am grateful for, and I will focus on. I will let go of helps you crystallize and eject whatever anxiety is kind of like right here, okay? I will let go of the stress I'm feeling. I've been talking to people that are feeling survivor's guilt. I'm at an office, I'm working, and we've lost people. I feel guilty for being there. I will let go of worrying about making the mortgage payment, even just for a moment. If you can crystallize and eject an anxiety, the research from Dr. Brasson and colleagues in Science magazine shows that it leads to greater contentment, okay? The equivalent of, say, like the Catholic confession chamber, okay? But right in your notes. Then, I am grateful for. If you can prime your brain for positivity, this is similar to rose, thorn, bud, with just a few small, simple pleasures, you start to carve out those neural pathways for the day, letting your mind be at least open to seeing some positives. And then I will focus on, I am guessing, like everybody, you are feeling overwhelmed right now. You have too much stuff to do. You're trying to work from home. There's kids. How are you going to get groceries? So if you just focus on writing one thing down, I will focus on, then at the end of the day, we know from research that's done in the book Willpower, you can cross that one thing off and you can feel some contentment. Again, this is a simple 2-minute morning practice to write down every day. I will let go of, I am grateful for, and I will focus on.
I pulled out my copy of the happiness equation and wrote out the tips there. You can see them right here. This is my great handwriting, as if I'm trying to forge my own OxyContin prescription. So I know my handwriting is terrible, but it is want nothing plus do anything equals have everything. I can give you the challenge of your life in a minute or two. How does that apply today? And do you like the font I chose for this graphic?
It's great. Yeah. I would give you a pill of Percocet, no problem. So here's the thing. Right now, we are all addicted, okay, to the news. We are all addicted to social media. It has never been more enthralling. It has never been more captivating. How many times a day are you checking case counts? Okay, how many times a day are you checking the media? How many times a day are you looking online on social media to see which celebrity or influencer or thought leader is posting about things? The number one thing I can take from that equation you just showed, Bruce, and actually make it an applicable tip for us all is every single day, come up with your personal time that you will turn off your phone and your computer, and your personal time tomorrow that you won't turn it on until. The greater you can lengthen that time, the happier you will be. So most people watching will be familiar with the phrase intermittent fasting, the idea of not eating after dinner or before breakfast. Apply that same framework to your social media and news consumption. Can your news day end at 6 p.m.? Can it not begin tomorrow morning until 9 a.m.? Even carving out a 15-hour window like that, and that's pretty long, okay? For me, I'm like checking stuff at midnight before I go to sleep. But if you can do that, start to think about know that number and try to lengthen it, and then it will start leading into a little bit more of a lessening of the anxiety that we feel right in our throats right now.
Just before we get to the Q&A portion, I want to ask you one more thing, and that is about your concept of untouchable days. It's consistent with this intermittent, except for historically, you've carved out an entire day in which you wandered the city and disconnected from all communication, including from your wife, from your kids. How do you apply that today when physically you can't wander around the city? If you've got, a 2-bedroom condo, you're wandering into maybe the walk-in closet if you're lucky.
It's a great point, Bruce. It is something I advocate. It is something I typically do. However, right now, the way that we're doing it is my wife, Leslie, and I are trying to say to each other one promise. And it is this: every single day, I will give you half an hour where you're by yourself. And every single day, you will give me half an hour where I'm by myself. In my case, that usually manifests into a masked, like I'm wearing a mask. I'm like fully, I'm in downtown Toronto. So I'm kind of like away from people. I walk outside and I go for a walk late at night when the streets are pretty empty. And if I see someone coming, I cross the street. So I'm just keeping social distancing, but taking some time to have a mental decompression where I'm by myself. If that half an hour for each of us can lengthen into an hour or two, great. But the promise we've made to each other is that at least we give each other half an hour alone time a day.
All right, I want to bring everybody back here. And Paula, I'm going to throw this first question to you. If you are out there sitting on a question and you're dying to ask one, we'll endeavor to get to them all. Well, you know what? We won't get them to them all. We'll get to as many as we can. This first one is for you, Paula, and it is, what happens long term? So in the workplace, Ryan's asking about the workplace. Once we're through the funny stories and the game gets a little old, the pets and all that stuff, what does mental health look like long term?
It's a great question. And I think one of the ways to understand it is that we're going through a cycle, right? So in the beginning, this was like shocking. We didn't quite believe it. We're kind of trying to pretend that it's not real, trying to break all the rules. And then we started to realize, wow, this is a real thing. And then some of the anxiety comes in. And at this stage, I mean, some of us are at different places, but we're at a point where we can really be effective in some short-term adaptation strategies. So from an individual point of view, don't underestimate what it's like to lose your routine and lose your structure and lose your predictability. But also don't underestimate how powerful it is and how you have the skills already, because everybody has done this at different points in their life, to rebuild that. So from a lot of what people have been saying, and from what we understand as well, is that you need to first understand everything that you need. So you need a little bit of exercise and movement every day. You need food every day. You also need social contact every day. You need a little time for space and relaxation every day. You need a sense of accomplishment, which could be through work or something else. You need to have those blocks as part of your day, and you can create your new routine, which will give you a sense of control, which will give you a sense of purpose, will help you adapt in the short term. We also know that it's some negative feelings do come up. Sometimes people are angry that this is happening. Sometimes there's frustration. Sometimes the anxiety is not going away. And what is really important there is to feel those things on a transient basis, to feel those things and then move on. It's just part of the process. If you're feeling stuck, if you continue to be angry and upset, if you continue to not be able to set your routine because something is really kind of putting you back, you can't move forward. If you feel overwhelmed and you can't really cope with the anxiety, immediately that's when you have to reach out. You know, it's a trigger to talk to somebody when you're feeling that sense of overwhelm. So, you know, it could be somebody close to you. But if it continues, you really do need to move out to get that professional help. Ultimately, though, human beings are very resilient and will adapt longer term. You know, it won't feel horrible all the time. You know, you get into a new routine, you start to adapt, you start to find your pleasures, you start to really find your new stride. Things start to get better around you, and things move up. So that is on an individual level, and the same thing for organizations, right? So there's a whole bunch of chaos and trying to just make sure that everything is taken care of, and your people are working from home well, and you're managing their health. And then there's this period where you might feel this sense of stuck, and that's where it is so important for coworkers to support each other. And why, again, I will say a lot of our organizations have really stepped up in anticipation of this. And we've had organizations cover part-time workers and casual workers for EAP when they didn't have that before.
I want to move to Jessica because we've talked a lot about the human beings, but one of the things you've talked about in your journey has been the role of pets. So tell us about your experience with pets. I know it's kind of hard to DoorDash can't deliver a Bermadoodle, but what about pets?
You know what? I wonder if there's some way to hygienically go walk a neighbor's dog, throw some gloves on, just pick them up outside of their house or something. For me, having a dog has been very healing. And when I was in my depression, my psychiatrist said, "What would get you off the couch?" And I said, "Nothing." And she said, "I bet a dog would get you off the couch." And I said, "Well, if it was a really sad dog, I guess." And she actually wrote on her prescription pad, "Sad dog." Tore it off and gave it to me. And so I showed it to my husband. I was like, "We have to." And I had wanted one forever. He didn't want one. But what do? You got a doctor's note. So we went and got a rescue dog. And she did look at me sad every day until I would walk her. And so she was sort of this person, this new being that I had to take care of every day. And that's what I mean about the snowballing effect. For you, maybe it's not a dog. Maybe it's just getting groceries for your neighbor. Maybe it's writing a card to your grandparent who you're not allowed to visit. Whatever small thing you can do, you are able to do that kind of tricks you into getting moving and getting a little healthier, that has a major snowballing effect. So for me, it started with the dog, and then it grew into like, hey, you know what? Running feels very different than sitting on the sofa crying. Maybe I'll try more running. So I just think build on what you have and give yourself a pat on the back for whatever baby steps you're taking for your own journey, for your own peace.
Donna, there are so many resources online out there. What are some that you would point our viewers to that you believe can make the biggest difference in terms of self-diagnosis or just trying to help identify or quantify what it is that you're going through? And then for ways to intervene or to find that support. One of the ones that was pointed out to me was a course from Yale University called The Science of Well-Being. They've made it free on Coursera. I hadn't heard of it, but that's one. What are some of the others that you would point people to?
So not to put a plug in, but CAMH actually has they've compiled a great list of tips and strategies, in addition to psychoeducation around mental health, what to do in situations like this that we would call a crisis. I think it's exhaustive, which I think is great, and I've actually helped to contribute to that. There are also, there's a number of things. It's overwhelming online. You can, there's stuff from Psychology Today that has practical, tips in terms of coping with stress. There's the World Health Organization has put out, I guess this week, they put out an article as well on, again, how to cope with not just the physical aspects of COVID, but how do you deal with some of the mental health issues as well.
Neil, there's so much content available in the world. I was talking to someone who works at Crave, and she said that the two massive films that are being streamed on Crave right now are Castaway and Contagion, which makes absolutely no sense to me. I can't imagine wanting to watch those two things. You're a book guy. You have this fantastic podcast about books. You also put out a list of 25 books to read right now. If I asked you to read one with maybe a bonus, what would be one or two books that you would talk about as a way into this kind of reminder of how magical absorbing yourself in the printed word can be?
Sure. Thanks, Bruce. Well, two parts of everybody's brain. Like, you got the left brain side, you want to analyze, you want to try to figure out what this pandemic is, what caused, where did it come from, how can we be ready for it next time, how do I take care of myself? And for that, the nonfiction reader, I would highly recommend The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb. He coined the phrase the Black Swan to mean any event that is unpredictable in advance, disproportionately huge, and mistakenly people seem to think they can explain it from the future. That helps put this entire event in a lot of good context. I have thought about that book, The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb, more than any other book over the past few weeks. If you want to escape, also, other side of your brain, fall into a story, get lost in a plot. There's so many places we could go right now. But why don't you start with Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Perfect for any age, good to read with your kids, a delightful psychedelic influence, you made the joke earlier, trip that you can go and just be somewhere else for a while.
We are starting to feel the magic of spring out the window, depending on where you are in the world, not so much in the province of Alberta quite yet, but in many parts of this country, spring is in the air. Donna, what's the role of the seasonal change in our mental health? And what are some ways we can, have our dinner in front of the window so we can take advantage of the natural light, the natural elements to give us its best benefit?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Seasonal affective disorder, or SAD as we call it, is a real thing for people. And even if you don't have the clinical version of SAD, there are waves and aspects of it that I think we all experience to some degree. So sunlight is really important. This is why people have sun lamps. Now that we're having natural sun coming in and it feels like spring is coming, as you said, and the winter's kind of going in the darkness, it actually helps our mood. It brightens us up. We can go for walks. We can get fresh air. We can get exercise, and we can actually feel like we're connecting with nature again. And it definitely has an impact in our mood.
Jessica, what did you notice about your comedic essence in times of when you were really in it on depression? Did it go away for you, or was it there? It was just that you had to, fake it till you make it. And I ask because one of the things I have been trying to figure out is what's the role of humor right now? And how do we, again, as I said off the top, balance the solemnity and the levity? What do you think?
I will say that for me, when in a depression, I don't have a lot of new thoughts or new ideas. So I really struggled as a comedian. Any work that I did when I was in my depression was just me relying on jokes I had written years before. But that's when I was pretty deep in it. I would say for this type of thing, when anxiety is what a lot of people might be feeling, I think just look for the funny. I have told my kids, so other than me walking around with costumes on and stuff like that.
You're not a traditional mother, right? I've been watching some videos and I thought when they reflect on their childhood and what their mom did for work, it's going to be a different story than, what I grew up with.
Yeah. And they don't even care. They just, in our house, our rule is, you have to have good manners. You have to be kind. You have to be polite unless it's funny. And then you're just allowed to say or do whatever you want if you're going to get a laugh. And so we've been trying to watch comedies together, like Galaxy Quest. Do you guys remember that movie? I think it's from the 90s. So good. Trying to find different ways to be funny, reading comedies together, joking around with friends, doing laughing yoga, stuff like that. I think anywhere that a person can find levity is a real key. To me, that's going to be a saving grace. We usually say tragedy plus time equals comedy. So perhaps it's too soon to laugh about certain aspects of this, but there are people out there online who are finding ways of having joy. Someone just made a video of him parodying the Adele video, Hello, but it's him trapped in his house going, hello, I want to go out. So I think wherever you can find a laugh, go for it. It really does bond us together. And one day we will be able to laugh about this a little more. But for now, just take it where you can get it.
Neil, I'm going to ask this of you first, and I'll follow with Donna, and that is thinking about our children and the mental health of our children. So we've got kids, their ages are different, their temperaments are different, their pre-existing mental health issues are different. Neil, your kids are young. Donna, yours are a little older. How do you think about your kids' mental health and what's different? I mean, you're so deeply engaged in this, you write about it so authentically, but what's different now that has you, have your eye on their mental health?
Sure. Well, first off, my wife, Leslie, is the superior parent, and I believe her mother, my mother-in-law, Anne, is watching right now. So hi, Anne. Just got a message that you're watching. My kids are 5, 3, and 1. So my wife and I have had the goal of protecting them. They know that there's a bad cold going on and schools are canceled, and that's about it. We do not read news around them. We don't have our cell phones out or near them as best as we can. We obviously make mistakes and slip. We don't talk about coronavirus around them. Again, we make mistakes and slip. And so, if we're going to Lysol a package at the door, we usually do it after they've gone to bed. So our goal is just one of protection. We've taken inspiration from the movie Life is Beautiful, Roberto Benigni.
Yeah, give our viewers the essence of that movie. I saw it at the Toronto International Film Festival whenever it came out. It was pure magic. Tell people what the example was there during a horrific time, the Holocaust.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Bruce, for asking me on the spot to tell the plot summary of a movie I watched 20 years ago. No problem. So the main character is trying to protect his child, who he's in a Nazi concentration camp together with, from the fact that is where the child is. So he is playing games and protecting the child through this, essentially a form of a loving.
Yeah, it's an amazing,
ignorantly and purposely blind to what's actually going on around them. Now, I can say that because my kids are very young. If I had Donna, what your kids have, I know it's a different story.
Yeah, I think for my kids who are a bit older, it's harder for us to hide what's going on. And they're very aware, even just talking to their friends about, some of the seriousness of what's happening. But we try to, not be so ominous when we talk to them about it. And we try to do things together to say, hey, you know what, we're healthy, we're okay. Let's look at, those little blessings, and that actually helps. It helps their mood, it helps their level of anxiety, it helps us to normalize things for them.
I want to wrap it up by asking one question, same question to each of you, and that is for your last word. It could be something you meant to say that you didn't get a chance to say. It could be a hope. It could be a call to action. Paula, I'm going to begin with you. What is one thing you want to make sure that our viewers are left with from our time together?
So I think it's really important for people to take stock of what they have and what they've been able to get through before to get through this now. So people have gone through changes, they've gone through ups and downs. You've got some skills, use those skills. And even from an organization's point of view, organizations have people who have been pulling together wonderfully, partners. Like we've been partnering with some of our organizations and using what they have in terms of resources, as Donna said, free resources on our website, on CAMH's website and other places. Use what you have because you have enough to get through this well.
Donna, for you, a last word.
Paula made some good points, and one of them that I call on is resilience. You know, we all have that within us, and we really need to call on it, especially now. I also want to just say we're all in this together. This is worldwide. This isn't just about our society or our community, and we just have to think of it that way. You know, we're all in this together, and we all need to support each other in whatever way that we can. I think that's really important.
Neil.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you're going through this. I'm sorry that your child is on the front lines, and I'm sorry that you can't see your parents. I'm sorry that the life that you had designed so carefully is going to look different than the life you have at the end of this. I'm sorry that you're going through this, and hang in there.
That's great. Jessica, for you, what is your last word?
Those are beautiful words from everyone else. And I'll just say, I hope, I know there are moments when all of us feel so very alone in this. And I hope you will remember to reach out in whatever way you can to know that, like, literally people on the other side of the wall from you are going through the exact same thing. So make sure you reach out. It feels so good to feel heard. So even if it has to be a crisis line, don't feel shame in that. I've done it before when I've needed someone to just hear my fears and anxieties, and so help is on the way. And yeah, I'm just grateful to be here and part of this message. Thank you.
Thank you so much to each of you, to Paula Allen, Senior Vice President, Morneau Chappelle, Dr. Donna Ferguson, Clinical Psychologist, CAMH, Jessica Holmes, comedian and author of Depression, the Comedy, and Neil Pasricha, happiness expert and author of The Happiness Equation. We so appreciate your perspective and your compassion and your care and your wisdom and your insight. I also want to thank Morneau Chappelle, our sponsor of today's event, represented by Helen Reeves, a Canadian Club board member, and our AV partner since 1975, Van Valkenburg Communications. So a shout out to them for the technical magic that they have pulled off. Our next event, Thursday, April 9th, 12 noon. Our focus will be pandemic politics, government relations in times of crisis. That is a major shift. To you all, thank you so much for spending some time with us this afternoon. And you may not have a teddy bear that is quite this size, but and he's just sitting here so patiently the whole time, wanting to just snuggle me and give me a little smooch. So whether that is a family member or a child, a parent, we all have been disconnected physically from one another. So grab your spouse, grab your stuffy, and give them a good smooch and squeeze. Thank you for joining us. Take care and have a great rest of your day.